Welcome to this week's episode of Real Talk with KMG. So, what we want to talk about this week, and I did a little bit of a, what do you call them, reels or stories. I always say how important it is for you guys to interview your agents, and I wanted to go a little bit deeper into that because I just think that you guys don't truly see the backside of it, right? I'm kind of talking to Hannah. She's right here. Thanks, Phil. We're just talking straight to the camera, but honestly, we just went under contract on one of our listings, and the agent on the other side, and this is close to $1 million listing, and the agent on the other side sends me the offer and literally asked me to review the contract for him to make sure his clients were protected. And I just kind of laughed. I was like, oh my goodness. And he was like, this is the one house a year I sell in South Carolina. And obviously, we're right on the border. A lot of agents are licensed in North Carolina, South Carolina. There's a big difference between the two contracts. And I just thought, like, gosh, if you're representing these clients, like, do they know that you do one a year? Right? I mean, they're getting ready to run, almost $1 million through this agent's hands, and he's asking the other side to review the contract to make sure it's correct and protecting them. So, and this happens a lot. It really does. And, happy to review the contract. Always review all my contracts for my clients. But you can bet your ass I'm going to represent and protect my clients, not his. Yeah. And we see that a lot, right? And then on top of that, he's going to turn around and list their house. And again, I looked up his numbers. People just aren't checking their agents. They're not making sure they're qualified. They're not knowing. And I think it's a lack of education because I think that people don't know don't know what to ask. People always want referrals from friends, which we love our referrals. But at the end of the day, if I lose a listing to another good, qualified, solid agent, that's fair. I understand that. I respect that. But you guys just got to make sure that you are interviewing your agents. Go deep, find out. Then some questions to ask them. How much have they sold in the last, year, 2 years? What is their average price point? I mean, that's so important because there's a huge difference between selling a $200,000 house versus selling a $2 million house. You're, different level of marketing, different clientele. What access to clientele of your price point do they have? I mean, that's a good point, right? Like, do they have access to agents that have that clientele? Did they have that clientele? You definitely want to make sure you look at that. Ask them to see the contract and ask them to go through the contract with you. If an agent can't sit down and go through every line of the contract with you, it's probably a big red flag. Make sure you're knowing what their numbers are versus their office numbers or their team numbers. We see that a lot, right? Or a newer agent will say, oh, my team sold or my office is sold. We're all independent contractors. So what we sell at the end of the day is different than what an office can sell. So I just think it's super important that we're qualifying our agents. We actually just picked up a listing that was expired that 2 other agents couldn't sell the house. We got into the process and our sellers immediately were like, wow, we wish we would have hired you originally, because they're like, what are all these forms you're sending us and all this communication, and our process is totally different than a lot of other agents' processes. And are they going to sign the dotted line and put a sign in your yard and you never hear from them again? And I guess kind of like people would ask, well, why would an agent do that, right? Why would an agent buy a listing? And what I mean by that is overprice a house just to get the listing. I think it's important to understand that agents can get business by having a sign in your yard. It's free real estate. So they might not be motivated to sell your house, believe it or not. They're going to get business. Their sign can sit there. And so ask their average days on market. Ask what their sales to list close price percentage is. These are all super important numbers that people need, especially in today's market. They should be able to lay out a marketing platform for you, yes. Right? And it's more than just, hey, I'm going to come in with my iPhone and take photos. At that point, you might as well go for sale by owner. I hate to say it, but if you have no representation on the contract and no marketing, you might as well represent yourself, right? And so, yeah, they should be able to lay out a marketing plan for you, lay out types and times of communication that they're going to be in contact with you, lay out and explain the process for you start to finish. Average homeowner, I think right now they're saying sellers or people move every 3 to 5 years, maybe 5 to 7 years. So that's one transaction in 5 years that you're going to go through. We do 5 to sometimes 10 a month, so we have that process down, and we can explain what that process looks like to a T.
What are your thoughts on discounting your service?
So absolutely, we see that a lot with discounted agents. My first response right off the bat is, if their only value that they have to provide for you is to discount their money, what's going to happen when it comes to negotiating your money, right? And I think a lot of times you get what you pay for. So I think that when you hire a discounted agent, they generally don't know how to show value in any other way. So they don't necessarily know marketing, which is what we go back to. They don't know how to negotiate contracts. And especially right now, because things have changed with NAR. So essentially now buyer's agents are responsible for negotiating their own commission. And so you want, whether it's a listing agent that's able to negotiate price and that commission that we're going to pay to the buyer's agent, because at the end of the day, the buyer's agent commission and sales price affects your bottom line. So you need somebody that, if they can't negotiate on their behalf, their negotiating skills on your behalf are probably going to be very poor. Not only with list price or commissions, but also with repairs. Because we've seen that shift back. During COVID, there weren't any repairs. It was very nice. The sellers got what they got, and it was like, if you want to walk. We have 15 more people that are going to come in and place an offer, but that's not what we have right now. You have to have an agent that knows what repairs you need to do, what repairs you don't necessarily need to do, and have access. Your agent should have access to third-party vendors that can do this work for you. I see people on Facebook all the time, and they're like, hey, my house is under contract. I need a general contractor, or I need a plumber. Your agent should be providing this for you. And generally, an agent that's experienced in the field gets this work done at a discount to you, and they push that to you. But again, that goes back to being a good negotiator.
Can you break down how that saves you money? Because
Yeah.
you kind of touched on it in negotiating and stuff like that, but where can
Yep.
actually paying full price for a realtor
Actually
save
net
money?
you more.
That's
Yeah.
good,
So we see this a lot. We see a lot of sellers that will go with a discount agent. House sits on market, it doesn't sell, there's poor marketing, and especially right now, buyers are super picky as to how quickly they're going to move on a house or what houses they're going to look at. So you hire a discount agent, they do bad photos, they don't do marketing, they don't have any connections with any other agents, your house sits on market. Or the ultimate kiss of death is overpricing a house. So you overprice a house because you have an inexperienced agent, and they overprice it, and you're thinking, great, like I'm going to get more from this agent and pay less to this agent, versus this agent that comes in is a full price commission agent, and they actually have done their work, done their research, their experience, they know where to price the home. That price might be a little bit lower and you're paying a little bit more in commission, but here's the difference. This house over here that's overpriced is going to sit on market, and when it sits on market, buyers see that. One of the first things we do when we're submitting an offer for one of our buyers is we look at days on market. We also look at how many price reductions have been made. The second I see that, I know that I have the leverage as the buyer's agent. Versus if a house is priced correctly, if it's marketed correctly, it's strong, it's beautiful right out the gate, the seller holds the leverage. And by holding the leverage, that's when you're going to net more at the end of the day, even after agent commissions, than you are when you have a house that's been on market for a long time and possibly expires. I mean, we've seen a ton of expired listings, and at that point you have to take that house, reposition it, remarket it, and try and push it back out there, and you're going to net less.
So I guess, like, what would be the biggest takeaway from this, and like what do you want the viewers to like leave with?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think we need to take the emotions out of buying and selling a home. And honestly, I can relate to that personally. So I bought and sold my own house last March, and I did it on my own. If I could go back, I would hire an agent. Yeah, it was great to save the fees, so I totally understand that. But I just in my head thought, like, nobody's a better agent than me, right? But honestly, when you're in this process, it's incredibly emotional. You generally have children or family involved, and you need to make sure that you're hiring a professional that is able to take the emotion out and walk you through the steps and negotiate on your behalf. And again, there's all kinds of conversations that happen that the client doesn't necessarily see, but those are the non-emotional conversations that need to happen. And again, going back, I missed some things when I bought my house that I would have never let happen if it was one of my clients, but because I was emotionally involved. I was buying and selling a house at the same time. I had 2 children. I was moving school systems. It was a lot of me. I wasn't able to step back from that emotional side and do the business side of it. And I think that's what's super important. People need to look at this as a business transaction, because at the end of the day, your primary home resident is largest financial transaction that you're going to have. And every 5 years or however often you move, you just want to make sure you're qualified. Hell, people won't even go to a restaurant without looking up a Yelp review.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So hiring a friend is fantastic. Obviously, we want all of our friends to hire us, but I am not offended at all if one of my friends interviews me and 2 other agents. Not at all, because at the end of the day, I know I'm going to put my best foot forward, and I'm going to win that listing. So just interview, ask questions, and ask questions that are quantifiable, that numbers, because it is business. It's not emotional.